see if it. I just got to make sure it goes through here. Okay, here we go. It should be live here. Go. I'll post the link, and then we'll get started here. Go. I'll post the link, and then we'll get started here. There's the link if you want to post it on your Twitter, and then I'm gonna.
Okay. Nope. Hold on a second. Let me just miss that. Share. Copy.
There's the link if you want to post it on.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me get rid of that. I'm good. Ready when you are, brother.
All right, yeah, I'm amateur at this, doing it live. So, all right, there we go. So, welcome to the show, everyone. This is Trey's Thinking Tank, and we're going to be talking about fixing finance. Here, joined with Mike Korbel. I assume I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You got it right, man.
All right. Yeah, and we're going to be talking about some finance stuff. So if you want to go ahead and give your sort of introduction, Mike, and you can kind of tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into the actual topic of finance stuff.
Yeah, well, no problem. Well, my name is Mike Korbel. I actually have been a podcaster for the last 2 or so years. You can find me at the Invictus Mind. My background is as a financial advisor. I spent 15 years working with a financial services company, sitting down with average regular families, teaching them how to put more cash in their pocket, get out of debt, just save for emergencies, get properly protected, and plan for the future in retirement. I had a 6 and 63 securities license. I got an Illinois State Insurance Producer's license, and currently I'm actually doing content marketing for the company I'm with. But I still have access to accounts and funds, and occasionally sit down with clients to help them. So. I don't know what else you want me to say about that, but I really enjoy the podcast world, just getting the message out there, because I think that this is probably one of the easiest ways to get education out there in today's world. People follow you on YouTube or Twitter or wherever, and since there are a million people out there that claim to be experts in whatever industry, sometimes you just gotta build up a following and a reputation through live streaming or podcasts, or whatever. And then I find that people flock to you if they like what you got.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the kind of experience, right? Like to be able to build up a following and being able to be a subject matter expert on certain things, and that's definitely some things that I've been wanting to do in sort of the spaces that I've wanted to do, is kind of become a subject matter expert. But I kind of I swing a broad net, and I like a lot of different things, so I almost end up trying to be a jack of all trades and master of none. But
Mm.
so but I'm trying to improve on things that I like, that I enjoy. So tried to narrow it down over the past several years. So one of the things that I really got interested in was finance, and so, this will definitely be a great talk. You being a financial advisor, to kind of sort of weigh in on some of the options that I took. And I know the first thing that I did, obviously, was clearing out a lot of debt. I got I paid off my student loans, which I didn't really have that many. I just had like, 5,000 that I had to finish up the last year of my degree. So I did that, and then I went through, as far as my financial journey, invested. I've set up a Roth IRA, and then I've invested in, the 401k that my company had before I changed companies, which now my current company, I'm having to wait till I actually get in there a year before I can get invested in their IRA. Um, and then, I've been doing individual stock investment to some degree too. So, and then there's crypto. I did do like crypto as well, so I have a little bit of that as well. So I've tried to keep it sort of diversified in that aspect. I do think that I do want some like property and stuff down the road, but obviously this is this working within my means at the time. So I feel like I've done pretty well, and I think that that's sort of the starting steps to kind of getting to real wealth at that point.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to start from somewhere, right? You said that you started working on some of your student loans, and that's the number one thing crippling a lot of younger students, I guess, younger adults is they go to college and they take out 60, 80, $100,000 of their student loans, and then it's like having a mortgage, but they're starting from zero with no experience. And where do they end up working? Starbucks or McDonald's or something, and it's like, okay, you're making $15 an hour. Good luck on paying that $100,000 student loan back. If you're lucky enough to get a job in a career where you're making 50, 60 grand a year, maybe then you can start getting some headway and clearing out that debt.
And even then, with the consumerist lifestyle that people live nowadays, they're if you're making $50,000 a year and you have $100,000 student loans, realistically you might pay 10,000 of that into the student loans if you're actually even trying, because obviously people are going to have their, and this is something that I've been trying to wean off of, not having as much stuff, trying to get stuff, or getting all of these consumerist kind of lifestyle of buy a new thing and do these things, trying to just live within our means, and that's one of the things that I notice a lot of people don't do, that causes a lot of problems for them down the road.
Yeah, I think living within your means depends on where it is that you're living too. Because obviously, I'm up here in Illinois, and you mentioned that you're from Alabama, so you probably have a third of the cost of living down there that I would have up here. And it's not like I'm a very wealthy man or anything like that. It's just that's just the way it is. And if you live in California, it's probably twice that of Illinois, and who knows all over the country. So living within your means, it's just simply just don't spend as more than you make.
Yeah.
That's the best way. That's the best advice you can have for doing that.
Yeah, but it's so hard in the modern world. Whenever everything's being advertised to you, like, hey, get this new thing, or go to this, go to this event. A lot of people don't know how to handle that, and especially in our space. I know like our circles. I know I've seen a lot of people who just they want to go do these events and do all these things, but then they have to basically fundraise for it because they didn't save up, they didn't have the funds, they didn't have the means to go initially. So it's something that people really need to consider, just cutting back first, and it's really difficult to do.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the consumerism is definitely one of those things that has been haunting people for since the beginning of time. But we were
Yeah.
just, before we started recording, we are talking about different subscription programs. That's how they get you nowadays. Like every single platform that you see, whether it's a channel you're watching on Netflix or Paramount or Amazon, or even these podcast subscriptions, it's going to cost you 8, 10, $12 a month, and those things add up, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, where's all my money at?
Yeah. Well, and they're trying to make everything a subscription now. And I don't know if you saw it, the other day there was BMW was trying to make it where if you wanted to use heated seats on your car, you would have to pay a subscription to activate it via software lock, like that they had on it.
Yeah, I
So
am familiar with that. My cousin, actually, I just saw him the other day. He's a mechanic for BMW, and he was telling us all about the subscription program, and they can actually deactivate your car somehow electronically if you don't, if you try to like override the system.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, the sort of technocracy, like the crazy things that they do with that kind of stuff, is insane to kind of monetize every little bit of aspect of your life. So I can't say I blame a lot of like millennials. You know, I guess I'm sort of in the millennial era. Um, you know, that they I can't blame a lot of them because everything has been so commodified to the point of like you know, siloed off into each thing is its own subscription. You know, kind of like we went from channels, you know, buying channel packages to now having a buying a channel subscription to like just Disney or just Paramount, or you know, like you said, or whatever. So it is understandable that people, you know, they want Disney and they want Paramount, so they buy both, and then they wonder why, like, oh well, I'm paying $15 a month, like why is this so expensive? Well, you have Netflix at 15, Hulu at 15, you know, then Paramount at 15. You know, that's $45. That, you know, for some people that's almost a day's worth of work after, you know, after taxes, if they're working minimum wage.
Hmm.
So it's uh it's crazy. But as far as getting into sort of the financial stuff, I guess talking about, you know, like your experience with finance, you know, have you talked about like I know you said you advise sort of families and stuff like that, but do you talk to them about the more complicated concepts like sort of like infinite banking concept and stuff like that, or do you just sort of give them the run of the mill, like, hey, you know, go open, you know, get your debt down, you know, go open a Roth IRA, this kind of stuff, or what kind of path do you put them on? Like,
Yeah, that's a good question. So my firm is unique in the fact that we'll sit down and actually provide a full education to our clients. You get a lot of companies out there that won't even sit down with you unless you have, you know, six-figure income or, you know, $250,000 in an account somewhere. They won't even consider you. Where a lot of the clients that I would have talked to in the past are just run-of-the-mill average families, working class Americans who, you know, probably would like to invest money, but they just don't even know if they have it in their budget. You know, so I'll sit down with them and I'll be like, okay, let's look at your budget first. Let's see if we can come up with an extra 50, 100, $200 a month. So, you know, there's about 12 different things I can do for a family to just put extra money in their pocket. And after that, then I'll say, okay, what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? So yeah, infinite banking concept, you know, we can talk a little bit about that. But we do provide insurance, retirement packages, and you know, some of the high-tech investment strategies. Most of the time, if it's like not my area of expertise in my firm, I can just refer to somebody who is a specialist in that area, and it's nice for me because the client will still get the help that they need, and you know, I'll get the satisfaction that you know, we did our job correctly for them. So I mean, there's a lot of concepts out there. We don't have any kind of loyalty to any one company. We're what's called an
mhm.
independent broker. So we work with some of the biggest name companies in the industry, and we just really just match up what that client's need is to whatever's out there in the industry. So, you know, you name a company, we probably can provide it. But I'll never sit down with somebody and be like trying to sell them one program. You need this, you know, you need this infinite banking concept because that's going to answer all your solutions. I have no idea until I actually will do a whole review with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you don't know what the kind of budgetary, you know, system, like you said, for each individual, or because if they can only eke out, you know, another $50, selling them on infinite banking concept is kind of really a hard sell, because that's gonna require a little bit more than just like an extra $50 a month to throw in there.
Mhm. Yeah, I found that a lot of these strategies, like the infinite banking concept, are just old strategies, but they've been repackaged and they have new sexy terms that, you know, everyone's thinking, oh, that's new, but it's the same thing they've been doing for, you know, for 50 years. So sometimes I advise my clients, don't get caught up in the name of the new flashy new thing out there, because here's really what it's doing, and you know, here's how it works. So um,
Yeah, well, and you know, if you understand, just I guess for the audience that doesn't understand, maybe if you don't understand what the infinite banking concept is, essentially just getting overfunding a whole life policy, whole life insurance policy, in the short term, and then that way, you know, over the long term, it's going to accumulate, and then the policy is going to be where you can borrow against the policy and be
mhm.
able to basically be your own banker. It took a little bit for me to understand that, you know, being sort of not fully wired into that, sort of tapped into that universe. But once I understood that and I bought into it, I was like, okay, well, let me talk to, because I was just doing like term life or whatever, and I was like, well, what if I do this, and then I can have basically, I don't have to go to the bank and borrow every time that I need to, if I want to get a new car, just uh you know be able to borrow against that instead of having to go get a loan every single time. So I thought that was the best for me, and it seems to be going well so far. As far as our financial journey here. So I think it's been good, positive for me. But like you said, it may not work for everybody. It may not be something that everybody can buy into or understand how it's going to work functionally.
Well, I think a lot of people were sold into maybe it was Bob Murphy who had was talking about it on one of his podcasts a while back. Nelson Nash is a guy who's really been famous for the infinite banking concept. But there's an author by the name of Patrick Kelly who wrote a book called Tax-Free Retirement, and it's basically the same program. Instead of whole life insurance, he'll use what's called an index universal life policy. And I don't want to bore the audience getting into all the minutia about those policies, but basically it's just great because it's a tax advantage, investment that also offers protection for your assets. And the thing about that is it's not for everybody because it's a life insurance program, so you got to qualify for it. You can't be obese and have diabetes or something
Different,
and qualify that.
Yeah, if I would have had like 10 different ailments, then probably it wouldn't have went that well for me, because they probably would have charged me an outrageous premium. So
sure.
But as far as what is sort of your bread and butter whenever you discuss the financial topics with these families, like what kind of things do you go over primarily that you're well versed in, that you understand?
Well, like I said, it's really just sitting down with them and figuring out what their budget looks like. As we mentioned before, most Americans, I find, they probably have more money than they actually realize, and many people don't even know what it means to put together a budget. Right. So
Yeah.
at the very basic level, I'll be like, okay, get out a little notepad or go buy one for a dollar or two at your local store, and write down every expense that you have for 30 days. You bought the notebook for $2. That's the first line, $2. You bought a can of Coke, $1.75. Write that down. You write down what you have, and then all of a sudden you have a working budget. And then you'll sit down and I'll ask the clients, okay, so I don't want to tell anyone how to disrupt their lifestyle, but I might be like, okay, well, you have some extra money on this side. What are you going to do with that? But in reality, the easiest way to show somebody how to actually put more money in the pocket is show them how to actually pay their taxes correctly.
Yeah.
It depends if you're a W-2 employee or you're a 1099 contractor, is how you're going to actually end up paying for your taxes, right? So if you're an employee, they're going to take a certain amount of taxes out of your paycheck every single month or every single week, every time you get paid. Whereas
which apparently you have to check and make sure that they're taking out the right amount sometimes, because I have had my tax guy, I have someone do my taxes, because complicated tax code. I don't really want to waste all the time to do all that stuff. But our tax guy will say sometimes, like, hey, they probably should be taking a little bit more out of your taxes. I didn't know. I thought that they were supposed to just know how much to take out of taxes, out for taxes on my W-2. So.
Well, it depends on what you're claiming. You claim a 0 or 1 or 2, and a lot of people think that has to do with dependence, and it's really just a mathematical algorithm for them to find out how much they're going to take from you. And at the end of the year, here's what most people think: when you get that tax return, in March or April, you might get a couple $1,000. A lot of people are celebrating. Oh, wow, I got some money back. But what's happening there is that the government borrowed that money from you all year long, and gives it back to you.
They realize that they you overpaid, and then that's, or according to their calculations, like, you may have overpaid a little bit, and so that they're like, well, we'll give you a little bit of a payback, for that kind of stuff.
And do you know anybody that you would give $2,000 to without charging interest, without at least getting a thank you from them or anything like that, right? And so what's the government doing with your money? They'll overpay in a whole year and then they give it back to you. But what if you could take that $2,000 and just spread that over the whole year and on a monthly basis, and then put that into account somewhere that might earn you a little bit of interest on that, right? So at the end of the year, when you pay taxes, well, you may not get that tax return, but it's already there working for you. And if it's in an account, it's earning interest, or you can spend it and have more cash flow on a monthly basis to do something with. Of course, you have to see your tax professional. I'm not a tax advisor, so don't take my word for it. But there are, just understanding how that whole thing works. There's something called the 90% rule, understanding that you have to pay a certain amount of taxes every single year, and you don't want to get penalized for underpaying. But that's one of the first things that people are surprised at when I sit down with, is like, wow, why would I want to wait till April to get this tax return? Give it to me the whole year.
So. Yeah. And that's something that I've, been, I've went back and forth on, I did, sometimes I like to be able to claim, and then, if I claim married and, like one, since we just had our second kid, but, if I claim that, I don't know how they're going to, tax that in that way. So, for me, it just makes more sense to claim, single zero, so that way they just take the max amount out, and then that way, if I get something back, it'll be better than not, underpaying, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing you don't want to do is underpay, the IRS, and then they come after you. So, for me, it's like, well, let them, I guess, let them take whatever, and then if I get something back, it'll be better than not. Having goons knocking at my door about my taxes. So.
Right. Then another thing that's hurting a lot of people is just the debt that they carry. You mentioned student loans, but most people, they have a mortgage, right? If you don't have a mortgage, then, well, okay, maybe you're renting, but you'll probably have a vehicle payment. You'll have credit cards. You'll have student loans, and that thing alone right there is just killing people. The amount of debt that they carry. So,
well, and I know a lot of people who refinanced during once they lowered interest rates. I did the same. I refinanced our mortgage, and got the lowest interest rate possible, so that way, save us some, in the long run there, to be able to refinance it, and then lock in a super low rate while they lasted, I guess. So. Right. Those are things that a lot of people just don't think about it. They lock it in, and they pay the same thing, and they never think about what being able to change it and fix it down the road.
Well, here's the thing about mortgage, though. You get a 30-year mortgage, they're going to charge you all the interest up front, and then you're going to pay for it. And for the first 18 years, approximately, of that mortgage, you're not even paying any principal on. You're just paying an interest alone. And so what happens is people say, okay, my payment is too high. I'm going to refinance, and maybe they'll have low payments. But then what happens? They start all over again, and they got another 30-year mortgage again, and they haven't really gotten ahead. So if you're going to refinance, then what you got to do is you got to take the same payment that you were making and just apply it to the new mortgage. So now you're paying, more in the principal. So things like that, people just don't understand. Of course, everyone's going to talk about leveraging real estate, and that's all good. But the typical American family is not in a position where they're leveraging real estate and things of that nature. But what we want to do is we want to educate people how they can get to that point.
Yeah, and I mean, you need a lot of capital, a lot of funds available to do even pursue those kind of things. Especially as I've kind of been sort of looking around, I was like, well, I would like to one day be able to have some commercial real estate or something like that, just so that way I can maybe set up a business of my own or something like that. So, but the funding required to do so. Most of these commercial lots are going for, upwards of, like at minimum, probably like I'd say $500,000 around here. So it's they're expensive. So you do need a lot of capital up front to be able to at least pay, the 20% down and get your standard loan for that property. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that you need that capital up front to do. So I was like, well, I have a lot of, goals and aspirations, and then, they require financial success to be able to pursue that. Because I've seen a lot of people try to do these things where especially if I want to do something, like if I want to start my own game development studio, and I want to, if I could create a game on my own, and just do something like that. And that's something I've discussed on this channel of wanting to create my own game. But I noticed that a lot of people who want to do indie games, and try to be successful at it, they try to do everything themselves, or they don't outsource anything, and they don't pay anybody else to do anything. So
Mm.
a lot of it's their own work, and it just doesn't meet up. It's not up to standard, I guess. And so what I would want to do, if I do start a game development studio, and I do this kind of thing, then obviously I need funding to actually get other people to do the things that I'm not good at, and be able to fund that, and source it out, and be able to for it to be actually successful. So this is part of why I got into finance, of being like, okay, well, I want to be able to do these things. I want to be able to have a little bit more freedom. And what's the best way to do that? Well, having money.
Right on. Well, you hit the nail on the head right there. Is whenever you're a solopreneur and you try to do all kinds of things, you're going to find yourself running out of time. And so you got to ask your question. Okay, you got to say, what is actually pushing a needle, right? In my line of work, there's two things that push a needle, right? Setting appointments and running appointments. Everything else is just, busy work. And so if you're going to be doing something, the paperwork, exactly.
Yeah.
And marketing is important, all that stuff. But if I'm not sitting down with a client, I'm not making money. If I'm not setting an appointment, I'm not going to make money. So what I've learned is that sometimes you want to build a team, and you want to outsource the things that are not pushing a needle. So, whether it's a college intern or somebody who just gets started, of course, now you got to pay them a salary or something like that, or pay them some kind of wage. So there's different ways of structuring that. But, you want to focus on what's making me money, right? They always say that you want to be working on your business rather than in your business.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, absolutely.
And too many people work, in their business instead of on their business. So, but yeah, that's part of the methodology, and the reasoning behind why I got into this, is because I realized that if I'm going to do anything successfully, and I don't know if you pay attention to sort of certain especially Twitter or YouTube personalities, but like Eric July. So like if you follow Eric July, and you've seen what he done with his comic book, and basically he just bootstrapped that off of all his his media appearances, his YouTube channel. And then he took the funding from basically what he was making, his income from that, invested it into paying people to actually do the other parts that he couldn't do, because he's not an artist, he can't draw, so because if he was to do all of that, it wouldn't be as successful as it probably is now. And that's kind of what I was paying attention to, and what I was noticing along the way.
Yeah, I mean, you got to start doing something, and know what you know how to do. Work on something that pushes that needle forward, and find somebody else that you can either work with or hire or intern. For a person like me, my daughter's turning 12, so the day's coming soon when I'm going to hire my daughter for doing busy work, and she's just going to do it for fun, whatever. But if I pay her a salary, here's the thing: if I pay my daughter some kind of salary or hourly wage, that's all deductible. So, you got to know all the secrets of business, right?
Now I know how I can get, deductible work out of my son, I guess.
Hire your children, hire your wife.
Yeah. But yeah. So have you done anything on outside of the podcasting? Have you tried to sort of do anything, any other sort of business, or have you set up business type stuff before? Or what kind of experience do you have with that kind of stuff?
Well, so I mean, really, I've been an entrepreneur just in the financial world for about 17 years now. So I don't have a whole lot of experience in other types of businesses. My former life, I was a heating and air conditioning contractor. So I was in the pipe fitters union, and I was a service technician. But somewhere in between that career and my finance career, I tried doing a heating and air conditioning business but I was just I got into contracts that were over my head. I didn't have the tools or the experience, and I fell on my face. So there's a lot of learning experiences coming from that. But in a financial world, I work with a company that starts somebody from the ground up. So I learned everything I could learn, and I was working for myself, but I wasn't by myself. I had all kinds of teammates and mentors that could invest in me. Show me how to actually not just do the work of sitting down with a client, but build up my book of business, to continue marketing, to reaching out to clients, and then the sales process itself. You learn a lot of skills about sales when you're sitting down with people. So yeah, and I've done a podcast for a couple of years. I haven't been wildly successful with the podcast, but it's more for a hobby than anything else. But you set up a little stream. I don't really like asking people for donations, although that's the thing that people do now. You want to set up some kind of donation box,
for
but
sponsors if they can.
Sponsors, yeah. So I got a small advertisement in mind, but what I try to do is I try to use my podcast to advertise what I'm doing with financial services. Like I just launched a new campaign. I'd rather provide a service than ask for a sponsorship or a donation.
That's and that's kind of my mentality of like why I wanted to like be able to do something like create a game or something like that, because that way if I want to advertise something, I can advertise my thing, and not only does it double the revenue for me, it's actually hopefully it's something entertaining for them and something that would be fun for them to
Right.
be able to participate in. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Is like, okay, well, if I can make my own thing and be able to advertise that instead of relying on other people or other things, definitely think that would be more beneficial for everyone, because nobody really likes to see things that they're not interested in, and that they're not that they're not willing to engage in. So
Sure.
But as far as like your personal, I guess, financial journey, do you invest in some of the more, I guess, like sort of complicated things, like do you like play call options or put options and kind of stuff like that, or do you just kind of stick to the sort of basic strategies?
Well, that's a good question. So like I had a 6 and 63 securities license. And if you're familiar with that industry, that basically just means that I was able to work in annuities, variable products, long-term retirement plans, things of that nature. To have a Series 66 means you become a fiduciary, which gets you more doing what's right for the customer, right? And I'm not saying I wouldn't do what's right for the customer, but you have a more of a vested interest in making sure that the accounts, if you're buying and selling shares of stocks and stuff like that, that you have to have certain protocols, so you meet with the client all the time. And honestly, I never really got into that. I never really saw trading as something that I was really attracted to. So I don't do calls or puts. I tried studying for the test. My 6 and 63 passed with a breeze. The Series 66 is a lot more difficult. I tried taking it one time. I failed. I said, you know what? I don't want to even try going for it again. So I don't even get into that world. So for me, you mentioned the infinite banking concept. I have an IUL I use. Same kind of thing. You overfund it. You pay your premium. And it grows tax free. And then when you want to borrow money, you can borrow it, and it's tax free as long as you withdraw it. And you don't have to pay it back, but if you do, then it compounds, right? So I'll use that. I've had IRAs, just the basic things that people have. So and I've got a crypto account, so I don't do any heavy duty, buying and selling or options or any of that kind of stuff, because it's just beyond my comprehension. Some of that stuff. There's a saying that I learned one time is, if you're going to have money, if you're going to have an investment, you should know what you're doing before you put money into it, right? You get some kind of education.
Well, you invest in what you know. I guess that's sort of the mantra and that's why it's gonna be funny to say this, but I actually the biggest sum of money that I've made, like lump sum in investing, was because of the GameStop thing, because I had call options.
Okay.
And I'd studied it early on, and basically I knew what I knew, and I'm like, well, this thing, like basically people were saying this is a dead company, and when you dig into it a little bit, and I watched some other people talk about it as well, And then it's like, well, if I read this balance sheet and I understand what it is, they're not broke. They're not a dying company. They just look like a dying company because of the perception, like the outside perception. So it's like, well, this isn't a dead company. Why it doesn't even resemble a dead company as far as financials go. So
Hmm.
what is, you know, so I was just like, well, it's these call options are cheap. The upside is huge. So I invested and did pretty well.
So that would be my loss because I was never on Reddit, and so I wasn't aware of some of this kind of stuff. And when that
Well,
whole
see,
thing went down, I was like, "What the heck?"
well, see, I found it. I found it before even Reddit. Like, the I was, we, the people we were talking with, like, I was talking back and forth with some people about it, and basically we called ourselves like the OG GME,
Mm,
because we were talking about this way before. There was if you know the guy, I don't know if you saw the guy Roy and Kitty, um, that made, like, millions off of the that trade basically. He has millions now, but he was doing his streams, and basically it was like a few of us, we were talking back and forth, and then him, and he's just going on like, yeah, like, GME, here's what's going on with it. Every week he'd have streams, and he'd be talking about what's happening next with GME, GameStop, and stuff like this. And over time, we just saw it be proven right. Whenever the board change and stuff like that. So it was really a fun journey, something interesting to see play out, because I was like, well, I didn't wasn't a huge cost up front, and then the upside was just so huge, and it basically made like, when you make five figures off a single trade, it's like, well, dang, like that's
right,
great.
right. The thrill, of the exhilaration, right, of victory. The problem with that is that not everyone's going to be able to do that, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's just
Well,
a matter of
and
being
and
lucky
then
and getting in the right
people,
spot.
yeah, and then people will either they don't realize how lucky that was, and then they basically, like, if you pull the slot machine too many times, you're just gonna keep throwing your money away, essentially. So a lot of people would keep doing that, and they'll keep, like, reinvesting in GameStop or whatever. But as soon as I knew, like, okay, well, this is basically peaked for me, and this is where I exit, and I took profit, and then I was
Mhm.
like, okay, well, let's find something else. Like, and I was like, well, most of this can just go back into index funds and just go feed that back into that, and then the rest, I'll it'll be play, something to play with and see, what other things am I looking at. But definitely sticking to what I investing in what I know, like, since I know gaming and sort of tech, those are the companies that I primarily look at.
Sure,
And so,
sure. Well, it's interesting because when I sit down with a family, like I said, I want to look at short term goals and long term goals. I want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and they have a plan. If all else fails, they'll still hit those goals. And then if there's any extra money in the budget, then by all means, if you want to start gambling, go for it. But I'll have to point you to somebody else because I'm not gonna. I don't want to risk my own
endorse it. Yeah.
reputation. I don't want to if for something that I don't know anything about that I'm speculating, and then they come back to me. When you have licenses, especially if you're a fiduciary, you can get into a lot of trouble for giving wrong advice. So I never really got down that avenue.
Or handling other people's money wrong, like if you're a actual fund, like if you're, because I know one of the guys that was part of that group. He managed a fund, and they like, through his fund he invested in GameStop, and so these people were able to see their fund basically go
Sure,
way
sure.
up. So his capital management fund was did pretty well because of that. So it's pretty interesting to hear him kind of talk about it from that side too.
Hmm.
But so what other things can we talk about here with this? I was gonna, let's see. So you mentioned crypto. What what do you just you strictly Bitcoin, or do you have like some Ethereum as well, or do you kind of dabble in some of the different ones, or do you just kind of stick
Well,
with?
yeah. So I set up a Coinbase account back in 2020. So I've for some reason I'm always a latecomer to some of these things. Like I said, because I've been so like programmed, I guess, if for lack of a better word, for just doing things that are out there that has been around for a long time. And so I just found some extra money and put it into Coinbase. But what I've done over the last year, because Bitcoin took like a 60% dump or something like that. But
Yeah,
I was always on the cautious side of that. So you put some money into Bitcoin, and the profits go up. Everyone's get excited. They tell you to hodl on on
yeah.
Facebook, and everyone's got some kind of advice. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to skim the profits off the top, put them in my gold account, and just see what I have. So long story short, I was able to, even despite the 60% drop, I didn't lose any of my initial investment because I just took all the profits, put it in the gold, and after that, I have some Ethereum in that account. I put some money into Doge a little bit, but to be honest, like here's a plug for somebody. I'm taking Vin Armani's or Cyprian's Bitcoin Mystery School next week, and so I want to get a wallet and really learn that asset, because I think there's still a future for Bitcoin and for crypto. Um, a lot of people have been scammed. A lot of people have lost their butts because of that. It's because every Tom, Dick, and Harry is like, you got to get into this Bitcoin account. And I've seen people, friends of mine, associates, who literally got wrapped up into it, and they've lost hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars. I'm just like, if you don't know what you're doing, don't put your money where's that just because it's the latest craze.
Well, and it's just like with well, my strategy has been, and I guess maybe it's worked out for me so far. So I like to think that it's a good strategy, but just dollar cost averaging. If that's something that you want to invest in, dollar cost average, and it won't matter what the actual asset is at any point in time. As if you're dollar cost averaging into it, then the whole point is hopefully your cost basis stays pretty low, and then as it grows over time, it's going to be more valuable to you, in say 5 years. So if I invest in companies that I think are going to be good in 5 years, then there's no point in me trying to time it. People trying to catch the top, or like trying to sell at the top and buy at the bottom. You're never going to be that good at it. So like I said with the GameStop thing, I sold before it probably technically peaked. So but I actually thought like, well, okay, well, I don't want to risk the profits that I could have. So
Mm-hmm.
just knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them is kind of the thing. But just dollar cost averaging into stuff that you believe in, and as long as it's something that's a reasonable asset, I don't see any point why you can't just have stable gains over a long period of time instead of trying to catch the wave.
Well, that's just it. But like I said, I want to make sure that my short-term goals, my 6 months emergency fund is established before I'm going to worry about gambling somewhere else. I want to make sure that I have my long-term retirement thing set up and my family is protected with proper insurance. I want to make sure that I pay down my student debt, my student loans, or my mortgage. Like all these things, people, they need to structure their finances in a way that the basics are covered, because hey, if Bitcoin goes up to $100,000 a coin, great. And if you have some money in Bitcoin, then congratulations. But if you have, $150,000 of debts, okay, maybe sell your Bitcoin. You're still in debt, but you got to kind of work on both at the same time. And I think a lot of people neglect what's important for long-term strategy. They don't think about, what happens if there is an emergency and, COVID comes and government shuts down your work. Well, how are you going to survive? You can sit there and
Yeah,
say, I'm going to liquidate my Bitcoin, but what happens if there's no more Bitcoin because it lost 60%? So you have to have an emergency fund built up. And then on top of that, whatever's extra, put that into Bitcoin. Call that your gambling fund or your fund money or whatever. And if you're a diehard believer in Bitcoin, by all means, go ahead and do that. I still would not advise you to put all your eggs in one basket, though.
yeah, and that's why I've tried to keep it diversified. Like I said, I've got the policy. I've got my index. I'm investing in index funds and my Roth IRA. Doing I've got my personal investment account that I've throw into some solid basically solid assets, solid stocks that I don't think should be depreciating really soon. And then um, then I've invested some for my kids as well. So what kind of stuff that have you done for your kids? Did you set up like the I know some people basically I set up a custodial account. Did you set up like a the whatever it is? I forget what the name of the thing is for like college. I know a lot of people advise you to do that, but I just set up a custodial account for my kids because I thought that that would be better to just be able to invest in that and invest in ETFs through that. So it
Sure.
just makes sense to kind of go that route. What did you kind
Well,
of?
I mean, it really just depends on how well you know your child. Because I only have one daughter, right? And so if you have multiple children, you're going to know that they have different personalities. Um, as far as college goes, just because of college and the liberal indoctrination that we get, I'm not really necessarily pushing college on her right now, simply because the way technology is, you can learn almost anything online anyway. However, if she wanted to go to college, my plan has always been, you know what, once you get a job, go to a local school for the first 2 years, and then I'll pay for you for the second 2 years. Well, with that in mind, you can use things like 529 plans. That's a pretty good policy right there. There's better states than other states, but the way a 529 works is you put the money in, it grows tax deferred, and if you pull it out for college, then it's tax free at that point in time. However,
It has to be used for college. Yeah,
it has to be used for
that's
college. And
the
if your child doesn't go to college, then you could pass it on to another heir. You can pass it on to a cousin or a niece or nephew or something like that. But if you're not using it for college, then what are you going to do? So a lot of times you can use the IUL, or if you want to use bank on yourself or infinite banking concept, you can do that for the purpose of college because it's going to grow, and you just pay for school at that point in time. So there's different strategies. I don't want to recommend or poo-poo on any one strategy. It just really depends on what the goals of the parents are and the clients. But yeah, the 529 is a good one. The UGMA is good. You can use mutual funds, insurance products. They're all sexy in their own right. Just the way I
yeah.
look at it is I'll explain how each one of these products works, and then give my clients a list of options. Okay, here's A, B, and C, and this is how each one works. Which one sounds the sexiest to you?
Yeah, and basically, what I decided to do, I was like, well, I don't know yet what they want to do, and I didn't necessarily want to push something like be able to push any one particular thing on them. So I was like, well, I'll just do individual like brokerage account for them, and basically have me be the custodian of that, and then just invest in ETFs of like total stock market kind of stuff, and be able to just kind of see that grow over time, because that way it's not a hassle, and it's also something that they can choose their own adventure, I guess. At that
Sure,
point.
sure. I think the best thing to do with your children is just sit down with them and explain to them how money works, rather than wait until they're 18. Okay, you ready to go to college, and they don't know anything about money, and they want to go to the biggest party school in the state, and go there for 5 to 6 years, and and then they take out $200,000 of student loans. It's like, okay, well, those student loan companies are preying on uneducated minors who basically just got out of high school not knowing anything. Maybe they've taken one semester of finances in high school, and then they say, here you go, you can sign up for this, and we'll give you student loans. And so, like, that is probably the most important thing you can do, is sit down and educate your kids about, okay, this is what this account does, this is what that account does. Teach them how money actually works, the fiat money system, if you like, or even if you're into crypto. I think educating them from the time they're young. I imagine you have real little ones, so they're probably not going to receive a whole bunch of stuff. My daughter's now in a
Yeah.
preteen, so she's fascinated by the prospect of money. And I said, well, you know what, I got a little bit of here for you, and here's what it's going to look like, and what are your options down the road. So from the time she's 12 now, by the time she gets to be 18, she's going to be that much farther ahead than most of her peers. And whether she goes to school or not, she'll at least have an understanding going into her adulthood.
Yeah, and I've been trying to gear myself to want to talk about these kind of things with them. Yeah, I've got one that's 4, and I have a 4-month old right now, so um, not really much that I can go over, but already I can. My 4-year old has come up and been like, "Well, Dad, why do you have to work?" And I was like, "Well, I have to make money." He was like, "Well, what do you make money?" And I was like, "Well, I need to, we need everything is a cost, like all these things, basically." And this is sort of, hopefully it's instilling sort of a budgetary mindset for him. I was like, well, we got to pay the mortgage, we got to pay the electricity, we got to pay the water, we got to pay for this, got to pay for that, pay for everything that we use. And I just said that to him, and whether it sticks or not, whether how that goes down the road, of course I'll probably have to revisit and talk about it again. But just being able to have that, he was interested in that discussion to begin with. It was pretty, is pretty cool to kind of have him be like, well, why do you have to work, and what do you need the money for, and then sort of how kind of explaining how it works from there. So
There's a great book series. I don't know if you've heard of the Tuttle twins or not,
yes,
but
yes. Actually, my wife, I got the basically the mini set or whatever of those, and either my wife or I some have read almost all of them to him so far. So some of them he likes more than others because
yeah, yeah.
the art, like the one. Actually, he likes the inflation one the best because it talks about it has the big giant squid drawings, and so he
Hmm.
he like he thinks that's really cool.
Sure,
So
sure. Yeah, well, I've shared. I bought all the books for my daughter, the Tuttle twins, and so they. I've interviewed Connor Boyack on my podcast, and he's got a lot going
awesome.
on. But so they have the books, but now they also have started a cartoon series, which I think is
Yeah.
hilarious. It's very well done. And so when that got started, they actually had a crowdfunding investor opportunity. And so I went up to her. I said, "Listen, you like these books," and I showed her the preview of the cartoon. I'm like, "Hey, let's put some of your birthday money into this company. What do you think?" So she's all like, "Oh, now she owns a part of that cartoon, and every time she watches it, she's like, oh, I wonder how my investment's doing." And she's not making a lot of money, but she realizes
Yeah.
that like some of her money, her birthday money, is going towards the cartoon that she likes, and so she's understanding value being produced from the money that she's putting into it. So.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, my son has watched the show a little bit as well, and he really likes. Honestly, I thought he would be bored by it, but he found it pretty entertaining. And for him, he needs something like really eye catching, and it seems like they did a really good job of being able to catch kids' attention and be able to
Mhm.
convey the ideas in that way. So it's really neat. Even I sat there and I was watching. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Better than a lot of the modern sort of kids entertainment. Something like
Absolutely, yeah.
Bluey and stuff like these kind of things. Kind of annoying, but it's like, well, this is actually entertaining. So. But yeah, did you have anything other financial that you wanted to talk about? That you thought would be interesting to go over. I just I was just kind of all this is off the cuff. I've just been trying to kind of
No, it's cool. So, it's well, it's funny because whenever the topic of finance comes up, you always get your internet wizards out there saying, "I've done this, I've done that. What's the best thing?" And if you get into a debate with anybody about finances on social media, all of a sudden,
I've
like
done it better. Yeah. Oh, like
exactly. And so here comes the flying darts of oh, you're an idiot, you're dumb, whatever. It's like, okay, I'm sure you're being in Alabama. Your football is probably your sport of choice.
actually, no. I'm into
Really?
basketball. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay.
no. See,
Well, forgive
so
my
I'm the
analogy.
outsider.
Forgive my analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway here. So, Vince Lombardi was the great coach of the Green Bay Packers. I'm a Bears
Mhm.
fan in Chicago, so the Packers are like our enemy. But Vince Lombardi was the like one of the best coaches, right?
Yeah.
And the story goes every single year when he was coaching, he would go into the locker room prior to the first game of the season, and he'd hold up a football and he said, "Gentlemen, this is a football."
Football. Yeah, I remember the speech. Yeah,
Right?
just the fundamentals. Yeah,
So that's exactly what it is. So when it comes to money and finances, stick to the fundamentals. I mean, there's a million ABC XYZ programs, concepts, accounts out there that have all these shining lights and bells and whistles and stuff like that. And it's very easy to get caught up into whatever the latest trend is, but stick to the basics. Make sure like I said, short-term, midterm, long-term goals are taken care of, and then figure out if you actually can put money into other more fun accounts, right? Get yourself out of debt. Debt is like the killer of most American families out there. They have no idea how much interest is just killing them. Figure out how to pay less in taxes. If we have, you mentioned some of the names, so I'm guessing you're probably libertarian-ish minded, something like that. So the famous taxation is theft, right? So figure out how to not pay taxes. And use that money, leverage that money, and put it in other things. But like I said, just stick with the fundamentals. You can go on and talk about owning a business or a side hustle. I think in today's economy, definitely having a side hustle is something that's important, especially because you never know if they're going to close down your business. Like we saw in 2020 that there's no such thing as job security anymore. So enhance your skill set.
Yeah, and that's part of the reasoning behind why I wanted to do some of these things. Well, if I start my kind of own thing, and if it is successful, it's successful, or also it can get me new opportunities. Like if I do have the opportunity to work on my own game, I could actually have an end to a game studio at that point. Because right now I would have to do a lot of that groundwork from the ground up. So if having something out there that an actual product that other people can look at and be able to judge for themselves, that is kind of says a lot more than what I can say in a resume or something like that. So
absolutely. And the secret to freedom is the more money you have, the more freedom you have.
Exactly.
So if you want to participate in your local election or in politics, okay, that's fine. I can go in a whole nother hour or two about those kind of strategies. But the more money you have, the more wealth you have, the more freedom you have. And you stick with the fundamentals. Make sure that you are ahead of the game. You're not strapped with debt. That you're not living paycheck to paycheck, and you can't afford to eat, but you're getting on a plane to go to the next political campaign that's out there. It's like, okay, that's probably not the greatest strategy. Take care of yourself first.
You have to crowdfund it. Certain people that we've that kind of stuff is just funny to me because I see like, well, if you weren't prepared for this and you're trying to actually do things that that require a lot of funding. They require especially the politics sort of aspect, and that's something that I'm sort of starting to get interested in. I think I may want to sort of run for something local, here in the probably 2024 election or something like that. But to do something like that, I know that like, okay, well, if I'm going to do that, I would need funding, and most of that is not, I'm not going to get grassroots contributions. I'm not going to get other people to fund this for me. So it's going to be something that I would have to kind of have the basis to go off of. So,
well, my opinion is if you're not independently wealthy already, you shouldn't get involved in politics. Otherwise, it's just a grift. But Anyway, yeah. So I mean, like I said, that's basically all I can share. I stick to the basics. It's always worked for me, and I'm not super wealthy, but I'm also not desperately, on the cutting edge of whatever's going to happen with the economy. The economy could collapse, and my family will be fine because I've learned just to kind of take care of myself along the way.
Well, awesome. I figure, I guess maybe we want to wrap it up here as it's almost an hour into this. So go ahead and give people, where can people, find out more about you and your podcast and stuff like that. So
yeah, no problem. So I got two things I'll plug here. So my podcast is just The Invictus Mind, INVICTUS, The Invictus Mind, all in one word. That's my podcast. It's an eclectic show. So I talk about political freedom, financial freedom, and spiritual freedom. So it's not always about money and that kind of stuff. It's very interesting. Talk to all kinds of guests. Done over 100 shows already. This month particularly, we're actually promoting we call it a financial revolution webinar. And it's a free webinar to anybody who just wants to learn how to get those fundamentals taken care of. Learn how to put more cash in their pocket, learn how to get out of debt, and how a mortgage works and things of that nature. It's going to be on Wednesday, August 10th at 7 p.m. Central Time. You can sign up. I have a little video and a website I made. It's just it's called The Revolution Starts With You but you have to put HTTPS. The revolution starts with you, and then .co. And it's free to join. You check it out, and if you're interested, you want more information after that, you can schedule time with a financial advisor to sit down with you, or you'll walk away learning something that you probably didn't know about money anyway. It's not hosted by me; it's actually hosted by my mentor. But I did all the content creation for him, and we're advertising it. So
Well, sounds awesome. Appreciate having you on here, and hopefully, hopefully we'll have another time to talk about other stuff, maybe more interesting topics than just dense finance stuff. But yeah, that's sort of the end of this show from Trey's Thinky Tank. We were just sort of talking about securing yourself financially, and getting set up with that way, getting the fundamentals right. But hope everybody's enjoyed the show, and come back then for the next show. So this is Trey from Trey's Think Tank signing